You are listening to the Hiking Radio Network, where we talk the walk with shows by hikers, about hikers, for everybody.
Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, the ultimate midlife crisis. Join Steve and his guests every week as he staggers from Georgia to Maine.
Hi, and thanks for coming back to join me in my weekly meanderings on Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, the ultimate midlife crisis, sponsored by Trailtopia Adventure Foods. We've got a new feature on the show today, so I think I'll start with that. Last week, I attended the Outdoor Retailer Summer Market in Denver, Colorado, as, believe it or not, I was working media. When I realized that they would allow me to podcast from the show, I set up a bunch of recordings with a wide variety of exhibitors, and along the way around the show, I picked up several more unscheduled chats. This show, which is vast, by the way, features many gear items that aren't even available yet. So I thought I'd spread out the interviews to, say, 3 a week for the next couple of months. They're only short and they introduce you to something you may or may not have heard of before. Even some of the famous names still have plenty to say, so I hope that I can give you a good mix every week. Let's face it, when you start buying your gear next year or for next year, you're going to want to know what's in the shops right now. One of the problems of such a show, of course, is the background noise generated by thousands of outdoorsy people, but it didn't drown out any of the interviews. I really hope you enjoy these little snippets. Now, our main guest today is Tom Kennedy, a man who came to love hiking and hikers relatively late in life, but he's certainly making his mark in one particular area. I'm going to leave that for Tom to explain. I'm also, with my lovely niece Laura, reading Chapter 9 of The Year We Seize the Day by Elizabeth Best and Colin Bowles about their journey along the Camino in Spain. Their relationship shifts as new things are revealed. But before all of that, there's this. Do you remember those cold, wet evenings on the trail when you pitched up at a shelter and there was nothing you would have rather had than a beautiful, hot, home-cooked meal? Well, apart from actually going home, you could try out one of the delicious meals from Trailtopia. Why not dig into their spectacular jambalaya with its authentic Creole flavour? Or how about their beef stew, which is loaded with beef, potatoes, carrots, mushrooms, corn, green beans and green bell pepper in a fantastic beef gravy. Go on, try them. Trust me, you'll love them. Trailtopia, the best of home cooking away from home. And because Trailtopia are our sponsor, we're going to be hearing from Vince Robichaud from the Outdoor Retailers Gathering a little later on. But first, it is time to introduce you to a great guy and somebody for whom I have the deepest respect. Here is Tom Kennedy, or Doinit. Okay, we're on with Tom Kennedy now, or Doinit, which is rarely called these days, but I'll explain why he's not called that too much later on. Hi, Tom, how are you?
Good. How are you, Steve?
I'm good, thank you. And I've invited you on the show today. Actually, one of our listeners said you'd be an interesting guy to speak with, and we've already had a conversation, obviously, offline. And you do some really interesting things, but I want to come to that later. I want to really start with the origins of your hiking life. Take us back to when you first discovered hiking as a youngster.
Actually, I first discovered hiking back in high school. We used to go up I was living in New Jersey, and we would go up to Harriman State Park in New York, and we would hike a trail that we always thought was 5 miles, but now as a real hiker, I know it was nowhere near 5 miles. It was probably 2.5 miles.
Yeah.
But we used to hike up to this lake, Pine Valley Lake, and there were rocks you could jump off to and dive into the water. And so we used to do that. And then on the way up to that lake, there were other side trails that went off to the side. And I would always look at those side trails and go, wow, I wonder where that goes, never even thinking there was a thing called trail maps at that point,
Yeah.
And so I never took them because I didn't want to get lost,
That's interesting. I actually wrote that down from when we spoke before. You said you wonder where the other trails went. Did that fire something in your imagination, you think, or where did you think they went?
I just knew it was more of the same. Even when I'm hiking on either the AT or any trail, when I'm in the middle of the woods, I'm always wondering what's over there that's off the trail,
All right.
I have this wonder, and I know it's more of what I'm seeing here, but it's just that because I can't see it, I want to see it, It's
Yeah.
kind of funny.
And so
But
this was in high school, and
yeah, that's quite cool.
and then I guess life took over, and then you
Yeah.
moved west. I understand, and you found the PCT. What was that like?
Well, I found it by mistake. I was just looking for some places to hike, and actually, even to be honest with you, I wanted to try find a place where I could gold pan. But I came across the PCT west of Los Angeles. I don't really remember exactly where it was, but I started hiking on that for a while.
Right.
I didn't do a lot, maybe just about 100 miles or so. But that started getting me thinking about hiking again. But
Right.
again, I was working on a job that brought me all over the country, flying, and so I didn't really have time for hiking.
Yeah, but you said you went out there. You thought you'd gold pan. How did that come up?
Yeah. Well, I used to have friends in California up by Placerville who used to gold mine, pan for gold. And I had heard that there was a little gold in that area of California, in Southern California. So but I never found any at all.
So that reawakened your interest. What age were you at that stage?
Let's see, that was probably around 1982 when I was born in 52.
All right. So
about 30. About
okay.
30 years old.
Yeah, you were born the same year as me. Yeah, we're pretty much the same age now.
Yeah.
And so the PCT kindled your interest. So you bought a pack,
Yeah.
and so did you start hiking sort of day hikes or longer section hikes?
It was just like day hikes, really didn't do any overnights back then. Just day hikes. I would day hike, and then the next time I'd go hiking, I'd start where I left off and just do another day hike,
Yeah.
Basically, they were out and backs and stuff.
So basically, you didn't really get fully into hiking until quite a bit later in life, did you?
Yeah. Actually, one year we were at a Boy Scout camp in New Jersey. This was back in the early 90s, I guess it was. And my brother looked up a ridge up there, and he said, the Appalachian Trail is right up there.
Oh, really?
Really? So that piqued my interest, but not enough because I didn't have time to go investigate it. Then years later, I was in a bookstore, and I saw Bill Bryson's book, A Walk in the Woods,
Yeah.
about the Appalachian Trail. And I was like, somehow I just have a feeling this trail is, calling me, Then later on, around 2010, I guess it was, I read two books about hiking the Appalachian Trail, and they were called The Barefoot Sisters Southbound
Right.
and The Barefoot Sisters Walking Home.
Right.
And these are two girls who hiked from Maine to Georgia and turned around and hiked back. And they also did it barefoot.
Wow.
But even taking the barefoot aspect out of it, they are two of the best, written books about hiking the Appalachian Trail. They are so good that, afterwards I became friends with Susan, and we've hiked together a few times together. And I told her, I said, your books were so good that when you were flirting with guys, I was getting jealous because I felt like I was right there hiking them, So that was the catalyst right there. I read those books. I finished the first one, read the second one, went right back to the first one again, and read the second one again. So I spent a month reading these books twice. And I went and bought a pack, and I drove out to the Delaware Water Gap and hopped on the AT, and I hiked 10 miles, spent the night, and hiked back to the car. Totally crippled. My muscles I had to lift my leg up to get back in the car. But at that point, I was hooked again. I was like, okay, I need to get back into hiking,
Yeah, yeah. And as you know, I live in Florida, and we're going to skip forward a little bit because we're going to move around a bit here. And we've had a number of people on the show who've actually done part of the Florida Trail. You actually did the whole thing, didn't you, in 2015? Tell us about that.
I did all of it except for 20 miles.
All right. So tell us about that, and why did you miss the 20 miles?
Because the soles of my shoes blew completely out, and I had no soles on my shoes. So I got to Clewiston, where I had shoes sent to me, and then I continued on from Clewiston. And when I was done, there were a couple other spots that I missed that I went back and made up, but I really didn't feel like driving all the way down south of Miami, to just do 20 miles. So
Yeah.
I'm 20 miles short. I'm practically a through hiker.
So was that your first long hike you done?
That was the first really long hike. I've done some long hikes on the AT, when I was younger. But this was the first one that came that close to being a through hike.
Right. Okay. And you told me you fell out with the people you were hiking with, so you spent a lot of the time by yourself. Did you enjoy that solitude?
Yes, I enjoyed it much better. That's when I really honestly started to enjoy the trail. I saw more wildlife. You're alone by yourself. You get to think more. And, when you have a group of hikers together, bad habits start to develop, and that's why I kind of moved away from that group and just went on my own. And truly,
That's interesting. You think bad habits start to develop when you're in a group?
that's what it seems to me. The day I went off on my own was we were in a motel room. One of the guys was saying, looking at a road map and saying, if we hike up 10 miles here, 2 miles over here, and 5 miles up here, we're only doing like 18 miles, but we get 28 trail miles. And I was
right.
like, how do you figure we get 0 trail miles,
Yeah.
And so that's the day that we left. They went to go do that. And when we got to the trail, that they were just on a nice road, and I looked to the right, there was nothing but water and swamp, So like, you sure you want to do this, Tom? I'm like, I've been walking in water for weeks and weeks, so yeah, I'm going for it.
You said there was hell of a lot of water on the trail that year.
Oh my God, there was an awful lot of water. We probably walked in water for over 600 miles, seriously. My feet were trashed right after the third day. I mean, really badly blisters. There's a gentleman, Nimblewheel Nomad, who's hiked thousands and thousands and thousands of miles. And he looked at my feet and he said, Tom, I've never seen feet on a hiker before that look this bad,
Oh my gosh.
So I hiked in for probably 500 miles in pure agony pain every step until my feet finally toughened up a little bit,
So what part of this were you actually enjoying then? None of it by the sound of things. You were embracing the suck, weren't you?
Yeah, it's like a standard joke we have when we're hiking. We're like, this is going to be a great hike when we're done. But Ocala section was actually beautiful. The Everglades were absolutely stunningly beautiful, but extremely difficult because you're walking through so much water. Ocala was beautiful. And surprisingly, the peninsula of Florida was probably my prettiest part going along the peninsula there. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
I'm very surprised at that.
So now, all this time you've been working, a regular life like people do, and then you went to spend some time to help out. And you can tell us how this happened at the Laughing Heart Hostel. Firstly, tell us how that came about and then what the impact it had on you.
Okay. Well, what happened was when I was done with the Florida Trail, incidentally, there was no monument at the end of the Florida Trail. It was just a kiosk. So my summit picture is me kissing a wooden board.
Nice.
So afterwards, I went back to Texas and was going to go back into quote unquote the real world, and I really didn't want to. I just spent 2.5 months in the woods, taking care of myself, and then I got a message from a woman who was running the Laughing Heart Hospital, asking me if I would come and help her for a few months.
Why did she think you would? How did you know her?
She was following me on Facebook. Like Beck. She also had made a donation to Hike for Mental Health in honor of my hike and stuff like that. So she was following me along. And so I was like, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. I don't have to go back to the real world yet, So then I got to Laughing Heart and was working with the hikers there. It was very funny. When I got there, I was wearing just regular civilian clothes, so none of the hikers would even talk to me, acknowledge me,
Quite right, so.
The next morning I put my hiking clothes on and everyone was like, hey, how you doing? What's up?
That's funny.
So I started working there, working with the hikers. It was a very, very good experience. We kept the place clean, neat, and just really very good experience. And they had a labyrinth there. And so I started walking the labyrinth and doing a lot of thinking and all, and decided maybe I don't need to go back to the real world and make $80,000 to $100,000 a year. Maybe at this point in my life, I need to just be happy and not worry about how much money I'm actually making.
How did that thought process happen? Was it partly the Florida Trail? Was it partly meeting the hikers, or was this just this point in your life that you just thought to reflect upon where you actually were?
Oh no, the Florida Trail definitely played a big part of that.
Right.
Yeah, it was. You realize that you can take care of yourself with very little means.
Yeah.
And still enjoy life. And then dealing with and working with the hikers. It just gave you a really good feeling. When you work at a hospital, you don't do it for the money. It pays extremely low. You do it just for the love of hiking and helping the hikers. That coupled with my age and everything, realizing I was old enough now to collect Social Security.
Sure.
And I said, you know what? Maybe it's time that I just enjoy life and be happy for the rest of my life.
Was this just you, by the way, or were you? Do you have a spouse at the time?
No, I was single.
Do you have family and friends who said to you, "What on earth are you doing?" or were they supportive of you?
No, most people were supportive of me, of what I was doing. My mom was a little skeptical, about, hike for mental health and stuff, and we'll get into that later when you talk about it.
Yeah.
But no, most people were very supportive of it, and so that's what I did,
Yeah, and so you stayed at Laughing Heart, or you just? I mean, were you then a permanent fixture at Laughing Heart for a while, or where did you live?
I was there for 3 months. I was living in Texas at the time, so I was there for 3 months. So the Florida Trail took 2.5 months. I was home for about maybe a week and a half.
Right.
Then went to Laughing Heart for 3 months.
Right.
Then after Laughing Heart, I ran up to New Jersey. I started this thing called the Feast in the Forest.
Right.
So I ran in up there. Then I got a phone call saying that Bob Gabelson from Top of Georgia needs help. So I contacted him, and he said, "Can you come and work for like 3 weeks for me? I need to get a back surgery, and he's got a hospital on mile 69 of the AT."
Yeah.
So yeah, okay, I'll come down and do that. Well, that turned into 3 months.
Right.
So the first year I was living in Texas, I was gone for 8.5 months.
And you enjoyed that life. You enjoyed that life. It's somewhat nomadic, but did you feel comfortable in where you were then?
Yeah, I did. I mean, when the Top of Georgia thing turned into 3 months, you get to the point, the hiking season is pretty much gone at that point. You're just getting section hikers coming through. And I was, at that point I was like, I want to go home. I want to go home,
Right. So where is home for you now then? Is it Texas?
Yes, I live in Friendswood, Texas, which is southeast of Houston.
Okay. Now, you told me a story before when we first spoke about this, about a dinner you had one night in New Jersey, and a woman who was stuffing a burger into her face. That turned out to be quite a significant meeting. Tell us about what it was.
Well, I lived at the time in Hasbrook Heights, New Jersey, right next to a Holiday Inn.
All right.
So I would go to the Holiday Inn pretty much every night and have dinner. I'm single, I don't feel like cooking for myself, so I'd have dinner there. And one night, this woman walks in and she orders a hamburger, and she quaffed that burger down in like record speed time. I've never seen a woman eat a hamburger like that in my life. So I had to say something.
Of course you did.
I said, "Oh my God, that hamburger never had a chance." And she looked at me, she said, "I've been in China for the last 3 months." And she goes, "I've been eating nothing but rice. I've been fantasizing about this hamburger for months, So we started talking and found out that she liked to go hiking. So her and I went hiking. Her name is Nancy.
Mm-hmm.
So her and I went hiking. And then she introduced me to another gentleman. She was staying there for business. She lived in Pearland, Texas, which is right near where I live.
All right.
And he introduced me to Leo Walker. And so anyway, Nancy eventually had to, went back to Texas. And Leo at that point was living up in Toronto. So Leo and I did some hiking, and then his job changed, which had him move to New Jersey, not far from me. So we would go out on hikes together. And one day over dinner at the Holiday Inn, we were sitting there, and we decided we wanted to do something to give back, something to do with hiking. So
Right.
Leo, who is one of the most brilliant men I've ever met, seriously, he's just a brilliant man.
Yeah.
he said, well, let's think about this. Why do we hike? And immediately the words came out of my mouth. We hike for mental health. I mean, we just feel so much better when we're, done hiking,
Where did that
we didn't know it
hang on, Tom. Where did that come from, do you think? You said it immediately. So what was it about hiking that you thought related it to mental health?
Well, it's just that always when I hike in the woods, when I'm done, and during it, I just feel better. I feel, I'm not a very spiritual person, but it feels to me more spiritual and relaxing when I'm in the woods,
right,
than any other time. When I was a child, we had a big woods down at the bottom of the block, and we played in the woods just about every single day.
Sure.
Until they came and tore it out and put apartments up. But
yes.
So I always enjoyed being in the woods,
Funnily enough, as soon as you said that, I realized that when I was a child, we used to live right next door to open fields and woods and stuff. And we were there the whole time without any parental supervision at all. Falling over, cutting ourselves, fighting, falling in the stream. Yeah. And yet we were perfectly healthy and very happy there.
Yeah, we made trails. We bushwhacked trails in the woods. We played Civil War in an area called the wheat field, where we'd crawl around with these little muskets and play Civil War. We built tree houses and stuff. And
amazing.
It was just really good memories.
Yeah, and I think a lot of us, having had that opportunity to be in the open when we were kids, perhaps that's what draws us back to the trail. So you thought about hiking for mental health. What did you do about it after that? What were you looking to achieve?
So at that point, Hike for Mental Health was conceived. We didn't realize it was conceived at the time, but that's when it was conceived, and it was born the following month. And we really weren't exactly sure how we were actually going to do it. Originally, it was going to be like a baton, kind of like the Olympic flame. People would pay to carry this baton, which would probably be like a tiny little pebble or something,
right,
from Katahdin, pass it off to somebody else. And the logistics of that didn't work at all.
Right.
We ran into things with the national park saying, well, you can't do what you want to do because you're making money on the trail and you're not allowed to. And we have to explain to them, we are not raising any money on the trail at all. The money is raised way before anybody hikes.
Sure.
So now we have it down to a really good system. We have hikes going on all over the country. We have hikers who have registered their hike for Hike for Mental Health, and they've told all their friends about it. And their friends and family go to their donation page and make a donation.
How many people register their hike for mental health and then go and do the hike, say the AT or the PCT?
On the AT and the PCT, we usually get about 30 people.
Wow.
who do it. Sometimes more, sometimes a little less, but on the average, about 30 people.
And on average, those 30 people, what do they raise approximately?
Well, every now and then, every year or so, you get one person. I just saw one of our hikers, and he's raised $4,000.
Wow.
We've had hikers raise close to $10,000. We have hikers who raise $25 and hikers who register and don't raise anything.
Right.
So it's a huge gamut,
Right.
But usually we have one hiker that's outstanding, and that's really good.
And what do you do? Do you support them on the trail in terms of get their social media out there? How do they go about doing this? What's their process usually? The most successful ones.
Once you register their hike, we have links to all different social media, Twitter, all of them, and so they can post their donation page. And when they customize their donation page, they say why they're hiking for Hike for Mental Health.
Right.
So then they share it with all their friends and ask their friends to share it.
Right.
And that's the way that people do it on the AT. The day hikes, for instance, we do one hike to Bear Mountain. Actually, it's a hike to Oktoberfest,
right.
And people just sign up for that and raise money. That's the only hike of the year that the money raised on that, and all the hikers know this when they register, that helps us offset our expenses. When we first started, our expenses for Hike for Mental Health were $2,000 a year. Now they're upwards over $17,000 a year.
Right. A lot of that was coming out of your own pockets at the time, wasn't it?
Yeah, 100% of the donation goes to the cause. So if somebody donates to one of the hikers' donation pages, let's say $100 with a credit card, we pay the processing fee out of our own pocket, so that 100% goes.
Wow.
So when we started Mental Health, we knew eventually we were going to get big enough where we weren't going to be able to fund it. But, this has been our baby now since 2011, and we're so proud of that 100% goes. So we were looking at different options, and so one of the options we want to try before we have to take like 10% and use it to offset some of our expenses.
Sure.
Is let's do one hike where that money goes to offset our expenses.
Right.
And once we did that, explained it, we went from having 30 people on that hike to about 60 people registering for that hike.
That's cool. So people know what they're not so much what they're letting themselves in for. They know the purpose of it because what you're doing is raising a significant amount of funds. And as I remember, I wrote down you said that you give 80% of your funds towards the mental health charity, 10% to the ATC, and 10% to the PCT. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Why that split? Why did you decide to do that?
Well, for one, it's called Hike for Mental Health. So that's our main idea is we're trying to eliminate the stigma of mental illness and also, raise funds for scientific breakthroughs on mental health research. The reason we chose the AT and the PCT was because we're using those trails. We have hikers on the PCT and the AT, and we decided we wanted to give back to, the AT and the PCT because we're using those trails also. And
I did ask you, you weren't quite precise about this because you weren't sure yourself, but you said over the years you raise about $75,000 a year, don't you?
Yeah, roughly that's somewhere around that area.
That is awesome.
Yeah, we usually come in very close. The Brain and Behavior Research Foundation gives $50,000 grants to scientists who are on the cutting edge of mental health research but have not been funded yet.
Right.
So when they get funded, it's easy for them to get funded. So we're always hoping to get, around $50,000 because then we feel one scientist is getting a grant from us, kind of,
Right. So basically you're trying to fund people who can't get the regular funding. So you're trying to effectively get a new discovery, aren't you?
Yes, exactly. And that's once they do get funded, it's a lot easier for them to get funded again. It's just that first funding is very hard for them.
Sure. Now, tell us about also Hike October, which I think is a really interesting idea because a lot of people listen to this show saying that I couldn't go on the AT or I couldn't go on the PCT, and they vicariously hike the trail through our guests, which is great. I love all that. But this Hike October gives everybody the opportunity to help raise money for mental health, doesn't it?
Absolutely. This is one way that we came up with where anybody in the country, anywhere, can actually hike for mental health. It's called Hike October. We'll be releasing the details again for this year's Hike October on or right about August 15th. You'll be able to go to our website, www.hikeformentalhealth.org, and you'll be able to see the link for Hike October. And what it is basically you set a goal of how many miles you're going to hike for this year. And you set up your donation page, and then you go out and hike or walk. In Texas, there's not a lot of hiking where I live, so I walk. I have a 4-mile route that I do every day for Hike October, and I just keep logging the miles, and so it's a way for people all over the country that you just get out and do some walking.
Yeah, you said just walking around your own neighborhood.
Right, and by doing it with Hike October, you're helping people with mental illness. And again, 10% goes to the ATC, 10% to the PCT. Our last check to the ATC was for $11,250. So
cool, very cool.
So Hike October, really hoping is going to really start to take off. Yeah, last year was our first year with it. And this year, we're really hoping that it really starts to take off.
I think that's a terrific idea, I really do. And when we were talking, you were give us some facts about mental illness. One which really blew me away was that 1 in 4 people suffer from some form of mental illness. That's extraordinary. So you're really trying to. You said you told me you were trying to eliminate the stigma. Do you think you're achieving what you want to achieve? Do you think?
Well, when I was a child, there was a huge stigma about breast cancer. Nobody ever talked. If a woman had breast cancer, it wasn't talked about. She suffered in silence by herself. It wasn't talked about. Over the years, now you have the programs. Save the Tatas. People talk about it. The stigma about breast cancer has been completely eliminated. We're trying to do the same thing with mental illness, is to eliminate that stigma. And to do that, people need to discuss it and talk about it. On our hikes, I have many people that come up to us and they'll say, Tom, please don't say anything, but, I'm bipolar, I suffer from bipolar. And they open up and start talking. And I'm like, this is a stigma-free zone. Okay. You can talk as much as you want, or you don't have to say a word about it. Whatever you want. Nobody is looking at you with any stigma at all when we're doing these hikes. So that's kind of, really nice to see people starting to open up.
Yeah.
Wednesday is the day that most people successfully kill themselves for suicide. And so I was originally trying to get the first Wednesday of every month to be Eliminate the Stigma Day and to wear orange that day. But now pretty much I'm wearing orange every Wednesday, and people who are doing it, a lot of them are wearing orange, on Wednesday.
Wow.
Orange is like the first color you see on a beautiful new day in the morning. The sky starts to light up and orange comes up, and so it kind of signifies like a new beginning type thing.
Yeah, you told me that Wednesday is the day that most people successfully try to commit suicide, but Monday is the day most people try it. And
right.
to find statistics or data like that, it's just so darn sad, isn't it? It really is.
It truly is. I mean, it's and it's very delicate. People come to me sometimes and go, I have a friend who's talking about suicide. What should I say to them? And I tell them, I said, call a suicide prevention line and talk to those people. They're professionally trained to deal with these people, because you could say something very innocent that you think is going to help these people, and it just makes it worse.
Right. Now, I want to ask you. You're not a doctor, and nor am I, obviously. So, from your observations, you've seen the impact hiking plays on people's lives, and that includes, I presume, sufferers of mental health, so having mental health issues. What do you think it is about going on a trail, even if it's only for a day, to people who have those issues? What do you think it does for them that helps them so much?
Well, I think one thing is hiking and long-distance hiking instills confidence in people. That I can get out here, and some of our hikes are only 5-7 miles, and a beginner hiker who's never done it, they feel, oh my God, I did 7 miles. So I think it instills confidence. It's very serene and very calming, and it gives people time to just think,
Yeah.
Now, on the other hand,
we have so many distractions, don't we, these days?
Yes. Now, on the other hand, ultra long distance hiking will help some people, but not necessarily all people, But I can't tell you how many times I've been on a hike and had people come up to me and say, Tom, hiking saved my life,
Yes.
Numerous times.
Right. So what's next for Hike for Mental Health? Have you got other plans going forward?
Well, yeah, we're always looking for people around the country that want to lead a hike for us, and they can go on our website and click on lead a hike, and then they can pick out a hike near wherever they live, and they give us the information about the hike. We research it and put a page together about that hike, explaining all the beautiful things they're going to see on that hike.
Right.
And then that person promotes that hike and tells all their friends and everything what they're doing. And,
is this a day hike, a week hike? I mean, how long is it for?
Some of them have been a 2-day hike. Most of them are day hikes. We usually recommend about 5 to 7 miles, because 5 to 7 miles for a beginner, when they're done, they're like, oh my God, I just hiked 5 miles or 7 miles. So for a beginner, that's a lot, and it's extremely, doable.
Ooh.
Some of them are longer, 10 miles or so.
And now I'm speaking out loud here, and I'm recording at the same time, so I may be saying something really stupid, but I'm trying to do the AT next year. What if I led one of those hikes for 2 days? Would that be possible? As part of my AT hike, if I register for, say, on a certain date, I will meet you people, the people who want to join me for this day, and we'll hike for mental health for the next 2 days. Would that make sense?
Yeah, you could absolutely do that.
Okay.
Yeah, you would put down, basically you probably would be better off registering your whole hike for Mental Health, and then asking people to join you along the way and register what section that they're going to do with you, or,
okay, I need to think about that, because I actually raise money for another charity when I do this. So, but right. I think it's a really important thing, and I certainly saw a number of people in the woods who appeared to be working out certain issues in their life, and and you could see how much better they all felt from just being out there. So I think it's a really important thing to think about. I'm gonna come back to you, obviously off microphone, another time to try to work out how I can do this and help in some way, because I think it's a really, really valuable cause. So how can people learn more from you about your organisation?
Well, for one thing, they can look up our website, www.hikeformentalhealth.org. If you just Google Hike for Mental Health, we come right up.
All right. Okay.
Also, they can like us on Facebook.
Right.
I usually keep up on Facebook on adventures that I'm doing, you know. Right. But we post, our hikes on Facebook also.
Okay. I think that's okay. Well, look, I'm so glad. It was one of our listeners, Dawn, who reached out to me to speak to you. I'm so glad we did. I know it wasn't all about hiking itself, but this is all so hiking related, and you're doing such a thing for the mental health community through the auspices of hiking. So I think it fits really, really well into our shows. So I really appreciate the time you've taken today.
Thank you very much, Steve. Thanks for having me on.
I appreciate it. All the best then. Bye. So, while he may have come to hiking later in life, he certainly had an impact, hasn't he? I love that he immediately responded with, "We hike for mental health," when he was articulating why people hike. I do know that the trail instilled within me a quietness that hadn't previously existed, so I guess that answer really resonated with me. The trail and hikers showed him that he could enjoy life with very little money, and he made the choice to make himself happy. I guess that's a life lesson for all of us, isn't it? As you heard while we were talking, it occurred to me that I may be able to help. So when we'd finished the recording, Tom had a great idea. The recorder was still running, so here's what he said.
I would recommend you do Maryland, the state of Maryland, because it's only like 40 miles.
Yes, perfect, yes.
So you'd be like, come hike Maryland on the AT with me. It's 40 miles. You can join me 1 mile or 40 miles or 10 or 5,
cool.
Whatever you want.
That's a good idea. So there we are. I'm hiking Maryland for mental health. I don't know the date yet, but that will become more apparent as my hike moves north. If you'd like to join me for those 40-odd miles, I'd love to have you along. I think it's a great cause, and I hope that you enjoyed hearing from a terrific bloke. Now, we got a couple more 5-star reviews this week. We didn't have any for about a month. Then, like English buses, a couple showed up at about the same time. JB_Atl65 says that he was returning from a failed 4-day hike with a friend. JB says that he was terribly unprepared, but that the silver lining was that he discovered the podcast when he returned home. He says that he's catching up daily, and I love it. I'm glad you're getting a kick out of it, JB_Atl65. Twaffles G, where did I get these names? Says that the show has great content, even better life lessons. He's hiking the AT in sections with his dad, and he loves the show, not only for the subject matter, but also his personal story, as he says. He goes on to say that this is me, indirectly teaches a lesson that my grandpa taught me through example. It is never too late in life to decide the type of person you want to be and create the life that you want. I think that is a bit of an oblique reference to me being a complete jerk for most of my life, but I'll certainly take it as a compliment. Twaffles G. So, the Outdoor Retailer Show. My very first port of call was with my great sponsor, Trailtopia, and Vince Robichaud. Not only are they terrific people to work with, Vince was personally very welcoming to me when I showed up at his exhibitor stand on the Monday morning. Here's Vince. Okay, I'm here with Vince Robichaud. Hi, Vince. How are you?
Great. I'm doing great. Their first day at OR.
Yeah, it is huge here, isn't it?
It is ginormous. You can get lost in the sea of booths here. There are a lot of companies.
There's a lot of food companies as well.
There's quite a different variety of food companies.
How do you differentiate yourself from the others?
Well, I think some of our products are pretty unique in the way that our bag design in particular is short and wide, so it's really easy to stir and eat directly out of the bag. So all of our products are cook in the bag and eat from the bag.
Yep.
And so it makes it very easy to stir and cook and eat right out of the bag. So no dishes to clean up. You rinse your spoon off and you're done with dishes. That's great.
Yeah, I try to help myself. So where is your do you have an advantage you regard as a killer advantage? Is it the recipes, is it a variety of meals, or what actually is it?
Well, I think a couple of things. I mean, besides the unique bag and the color coding that we use to identify different kinds of meals, that's easier to find when you're digging through your pack.
Yeah, done right.
We make really, really good food, and the food is eat at home quality. You would want to eat any of this at home, not just in the backcountry. So I think we make some really good food, and we make, I think, one of the largest varieties of gluten-free meals out there, and that's expanding. And last year we expanded into some vegetarian meals as well. So I think those things are really good. We try to keep clean labels and really good ingredients.
Yeah.
We use premium freeze-dried fruits and vegetables, so you can actually see what you're eating. You can
Real
see
blueberry.
the pieces, real blueberries.
As I say in the commercial, real blueberries.
Yeah, even, our ginger chicken stir fry is loaded with vegetables. You see the broccoli, you see the peas, you see the carrots, you see, all the various veggies that are in there. And it's as close as you can get to eating fresh without eating fresh. Right?
I don't know whether we told you this, but when Bruce had a farewell party, he had a farewell party up in Richmond, which he invited me to come and speak. And one of the things they did, before they served the main meal, they served in those serving trays Troutopia food.
Oh, nice. I didn't realize that.
Oh, yeah. And the guests absolutely loved it.
Nice.
That was a really, really nice little touch.
That was very nice.
I really appreciate it. I just want to say to you personally, I really, really thank you for sponsoring us. And Bruce has been so overwhelmed by this as well. It's just been great for him on his journey. And every week we get somebody to ask a question. And we've just had our second questioner who's about to get another 2 meals from you guys. So
exactly. That's the sponsorship's been great. I love what Bruce is doing, and his fundraiser also. For the Trail Conservancy is an awesome cause. So it's been great all the way around. I think it's been a great experience.
Great. Well, I appreciate it, and thanks very much for talking to us today.
Thank you.
Cheers. I tell you what, those bags and that food really make a difference. The food tastes great, and the bags make it all accessible. Enough said. Next, I wandered around and saw an interesting little exhibit. Let Aidan Sonju tell you all about Tinklebell. Right, I'm here with Aidan, spelled A-D-Y-N, and she's with Tinklebell. So I think she wants to share the Tinklebell story with us.
Yes, so the Tinklebell, which you may tell by the name, has something to do with tinkle.
Indeed.
And it's actually a female stand-up-pee accessory. It's perfect for hiking. You don't have to go find a bush or try to kill yourself running down the hill, sliding down the hill, trying to find a place to cover to go pee. So it is a longer length than what anything else on the market. Yep. And that's so that you don't pee on your feet, but it's still collapsible so that you can be discreet and carry it with you. It comes with a little carry pouch, and it's fit to the female form. So we specifically designed it so that it fits you so it doesn't leak, which is the last thing that you want to have on the trail.
And how do people get it from you?
They can order from our website, thetinklebell.com, or it is also available on Amazon.
And I mentioned when we spoke just now that I'd seen the P styles. You say you regard this as a step up from the P styles?
We do. We added longer length, like I mentioned before. It also is more compact than the P style, and it has a soft wiping lip, so that's very important. Sure. The last thing you want down there is something that's uncomfortable.
You think?
Yes.
I'm slightly less uncomfortable than I thought I would be actually interviewing you about this, but I'm good to go.
Well, awesome.
And the reason being, they've got this great stand. I'm going to take a picture of the stand showing the Tinklebell in action, and I'll put that on the show notes.
Yes, awesome. Thank you for stopping
Thanks
by.
Thanks a lot. Bye. Yep, my second interview was with a woman demonstrating, well, you know what I mean, a device to allow women to pee standing up. A surprisingly functional piece of kit for women out on the trail. Personally, I would never have thought of it, and when I was told about this thing when I was on the trail in 2014, it was by my friend Styles, and I asked her why she was called Styles, and she had the P style. So, the things you learn at this age. Lastly, for this week, I was strolling around with a friend of the show, Clay Bonneman Evans, who's a really nice guy. He lives in Denver, and we bumped into Erica Rosen of BioLite. And Erica showed me a really fascinating little fire pit that actually charges your phone. Who could possibly have ever thought of that? Here's Erica. Right, lucky to meet Erica Rosen from BioLite, and I've been hanging around the store talking to somebody, and then Erica approached us, as they do, and she showed us a really interesting stove and turning a fire into electricity. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so what we were talking about was the BioLite camp stove. It is a wood-burning camp stove that generates electricity from the heat of its own fire.
And how long does it take to charge a phone? How much electricity do you need to get a phone charged?
Sure, so the Camp Stove 2, which is the model that we have out this year, generates about 3 watts of electricity during a live fire.
Okay.
So the idea is during the course of a meal, you could put anywhere from 25 to 50% of juice back on your phone. So it's meant to take advantage of the energy that you're already using and producing. So
Sure.
the idea is you make a fire to cook your meal or to enjoy just a small portable campfire, and then you get access to that co-benefit of electricity. It also has an onboard battery, so even if you didn't want to charge your phone, it could store up that energy for you so that you could access the electricity when you were ready for it.
Right, well, and interesting enough, and I said, we picked up the stove, and the stove was slightly heavier than I would have hoped, because on a backpacking trip. But Erica, of course, kicked back on that. So tell us why you said that the ultralight isn't necessarily the way forward.
Yeah, certainly. So look, I think that the ultralight community has very valid claims, getting to the right down to the ounce and everything matters. But where we push back is that there's lightweight and then there's also right weight. And there's the idea of, is your product doing a lot for you? Because if you see several co-benefits and co-activities taking place, the weight actually starts to get distributed. Because, for example, with the camp stove, it's not just your camping stove, it is a charger. It is the ability to have a light source. It's the ability to enjoy the feeling of a portable campfire, which you can't really create from a tiny gas stove. And so when you start to stack all of these benefits on top of each other, the 2-pound weight starts to become somewhat attractive. Look, there's going to be members of the ultralight community who say 2 pounds, get out of here.
Exactly,
I'm not going to convert them, and that's okay.
That's about 3/10 for them.
I think that what's interesting about the camp stove is it brings a real level of accessibility into the outdoors. It's really easy to use. It's really satisfying to collect sticks and fuel around you and to create fire with it.
Sure.
There's something very
Absolutely.
primitive and very pleasing about that. And so for us, it's about creating that level of accessibility.
And you did show us another thing, which is the solar panels. Tell us about the solar panels.
Yeah, so we have a line of solar panels, and what's different about them is what they do is they set you up for success. So a big thing with solar panels is that where the real efficiency happens and the real breakthrough in converting the sun into usable energy is if you set it up correctly. A lot of the time people will just say, oh, it's sunny out, and they just put out a solar panel. If you don't have it directly aligned to the sun, you can be missing up to 40% of your solar panel's capability. And so what our solar panels have is we go old school. We have an analog sundial up in the top corner, and we have a kickstand. And so what you do is you use the sundial to orient it correctly to the sun, and then you use the kickstand to stabilize the solar panel in the right place. And so that's the opportunity in terms of efficiency, number one. The other thing that we offer is in our 5 Plus and 10 Plus model, so that's the 5 watt and 10 watt model, we also have onboard storage. So let's say that you're going for a hike and you can't perfectly align it to the sun. What you can do is you can throw it onto the outside of your backpack, and the onboard battery will store up that energy over the however many hours that you're hiking, so you still have on-demand energy ready to charge back at the campsite.
So how can listeners see what you've got? Where do you sell this stuff?
Yeah, so you can find us at your local REI, at Bass Pro, at LL Bean. We're at most outdoor retailers. You can also find us directly on our website, and that's where you'll get the most information and the most videos. So we're at biolightenergy.com, and that's BIOLITE energy.com.
Very good. Thank you so much. Thanks for spending the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Cheers. I really like the look of that. And in fact, we recorded another few seconds when she told me something unexpected after our initial chat. Here's Erica again. Right, there's one more thing you mentioned to me before we actually started recording. It's something to do with what you do in Africa.
Yes, absolutely. So BioAAY, we have our headquarters in New York and in Nairobi. So we have a full-time staff.
Very different.
Yeah, in East Africa. That's because of the core of our business. BioAAY is an organization with a mission to bring energy everywhere. We believe that the future of energy should be shared by everyone. And so half of our organization works in bringing energy access to families that live off-grid. And so this is primarily right now in Kenya and Uganda. That's where most of our operations are. Half the planet still cooks over smoky open fires every single day. 1.2 billion people lack reliable access to electricity. And we have technologies that have transformed lives. Mobile phones, rates of mobile phone ownership outpace rates of electrification. So you have these really interesting energy paradoxes. And so the same technology that goes into the products that we make for our camping and outdoor market get designed into home appliances for families across East Africa.
So how do you get into that?
So it's actually at the nexus of our business. So when we developed our first prototype, it was this wood-burning camp stove. Our co-founders took it to a clean combustion conference, if you can believe that, and they thought they were going to find a bunch of tinkerers. They thought they were going to find people working in their garage on cool little projects. And when they got there, they found combustion scientists and PhD doctorates who are looking at how do you clean up biomass fires.
Sure.
And they realized that there is a whole cohort of people who are trying to solve for renewable, reliable energy access as the next 3 billion people become connected to the grid. And so that's when we realized that there was a real opportunity to build mission into the heart of this company and reach a population that was not getting served by traditional energy structures.
I think that's a great story. I really do. I really appreciate you telling us that.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks. So these 3 little items will have links and the odd photo in the show notes. I hope you like this section because I've got about another 8 or 9 weeks worth. I've got to tell you, it was a real eye-opener for me to see the scale of the stuff that is out there with new inventions and tweaks of old favourites. Finally, we've reached chapter 9 of the year we seize the day. This week, thank goodness, Colin's a bit sombre, so I didn't have fits of giggles slowing me down. Don't worry though, I've read ahead. And Giggling Steve is just around the corner. I'll see you next week. Chapter 9. Day 8. Logroño and no place else. Colin. No bonking in the barracks. I head into the city on my own. Genteel buskers play violins under the colonnades and men in suits sit under the shade trees near the cathedral drinking coffee. Inside the cathedral there is some impressive Rococo architecture before the altar, but for me the real focus and power lies behind the altar in the curiously pagan mother sculpture and painting. On either side are various Madonnas, and in the chapel, separated by modern plate glass, is one of the most ornate and imposing Virgin statues I have ever seen. It is huge. Here people pray in true reverence and there are no camera flashes. The traditional hierarchy is reversed here. It is the Madonna who is head of the Blessed Triumvirate before God and the crucifix. In fact, in the entire cathedral, her statues outnumber the Son of God 4-1 by my count. Before Christianity, the goddess was the heroic figure around much of the Mediterranean, an icon of sensuality, fecundity, kindness, nurturing and compassion. Perhaps Venus is not as easily forgotten or superimposed as the Church wishes to believe. In the evening, Ellie has a run-in with Obersturmbannführer Manuel. "Get out," he screams at her, "get out!" Ellie's crime is that she is still using the internet at 2 minutes past 10 o'clock, when the Stalag shuts for the night at precisely 10. It is, after all, an ungodly hour for a Catholic to still be awake. "Get out," he screams, flecks of froth forming at the corners of his hatchet mouth. "Get out!" She returns, shaken and bewildered, to the dormitory and slumps onto the bunk above me. It's a restless night. I have to tell you, I hate snorers. No patience with them. People with inefficient sinuses should be shot. That night, the snoring that goes on in the barracks-like dormitory is simply unbelievable. There's bass, treble and libretto. The guy next to Ellie has a basso profundo with classic whistle in 2/4 time. In the dark, I hear the sound of giggling and snuffling in the corner and the telltale squeak of love in bloom. There are pilgrims having a bonk in a bunk in the barracks. If Obersturmbannführer Manuel finds out about this, there are going to be gassings. So next morning, Ellie and I are both tired and bleary-eyed. Neither of us got much sleep. Ellie is looking in the communal fridge for the yogurt she put in there the night before when Obersturmbannführer Manuel walks in. "Get out!" he screams at her. "Get out!" There is a vein bulging in his temple like a piece of wet rope. What commandment she has transgressed is not clear to anyone. Perhaps commandment number 11, thou shalt not put yogurt in the fridge. Jehovah hates that. It's a fine start to a rotten day.
Ellie, outside the comfort zone. The next day, Carl and I lie in while the other pilgrims disappear into the cool pre-dawn. I feel curiously guilty. What is it about the Camino that makes simple pleasures feel like mortal sins? But whether or not we've earned this day's break is secondary to the fact that we need one. Carl's boots are giving him grief, and my body hates me. Carl leaves to find breakfast while I disembowel my backpack. I've been living out of it for over a week and don't even know what's in there anymore. With the day to myself, I write some postcards over lunch and wander the ancient streets of Logrono like a tourist. There are coffee shops, fashion stores and restaurants, nice hotels, noisy traffic, buskers, and many beautiful and very clean people, obviously not pilgrims. Even in a town like Logrono, European culture exudes elegance. It is strange what you miss when you step outside your comfort zone. I miss the buzz of cities like this, the energy, the vibe. I'm a country girl turned city chick. I love them both and crave the freedom to bounce between. I sit cross-legged in the sun on the warm stone slab of the central plaza, watching thousands of birds wheel above the church. From here they look like sparrows, furiously flapping their tiny wings, circling the main bell tower. They never seem to rest. An old man in a tweed beret sits by me in the square. We share a smile, and together we watch the small birds dance. He tells me my sparrows are vencheos, swifts. Throughout their life, they never touch the ground and only ever come down once, to die. Maybe our earth is their heaven. I cross the plaza in search of a cold drink. Colin is seated outside a bar, taking notes under the shade of a drooping maple branch. For a minute, I stand and watch him from a distance. Colin's a fascinating man. When people heard I was leaving on this trip with a 50-year-old single man about to release a book about his own infidelity, 2 questions inevitably followed. 1. Why? 800 kilometres on foot's a long way, and many were concerned. 2. How well do you know this guy, Colin? In order to answer the second question, you really need to ask another. How well does Colin know Colin? One thing is certain, you will only ever know of him what he wants you to. Cole's unique. He's a funny guy, a sweet man, a talented writer, and a friend. If there are things you can tell about a person just by listening to them, I can also say he's a good father. His daughters mean more to him than anything else in his life. He may exude an air of mystery, of strength, confidence, and surety about everything he does, but there's more to Colin than what you see at first glance, much more than I presume to know. A vulnerability, a sadness. The conversation we have over a beer that day in Logrono is completely unexpected and changes everything between us. Suddenly, our friendship takes on a new dimension. The game changes, and so do the stakes. Elle, it's too much. I'm not sure I can do this. Do what? I ask. This, the walk, the Camino. It's bringing up all of this stuff. I thought I'd dealt with it years ago, and now it's everywhere. I can't escape it, Elle. I'm dreaming about Helen, for God's sake. Helen was Cole's wife. We've spoken about her briefly before. He told me of the circumstances surrounding her suicide, but also that he has moved on. Watching him wince and grimace as he speaks, I realise this is real, and as raw as I imagine it's ever been. Colin, the rock, has just become the human. I've not seen this from him before. Tears fill his eyes, and my little girls, then fall as he speaks about the past. I sit stunned, watching the man as he weeps, broken. I knew something was troubling him, but I hadn't seen this coming. It's moments like these that you either ask why me, why now, Will you simply say thank you? I can't help but question my ability to offer him solace, comfort, or support. What do you say to a man who's lost more than you've ever had? Yet I appreciate the fact that he's opened up and trusted me with it. I reach across the table and take his hand. Col, it's okay. He looks at me, confused but not ashamed. He doesn't hide his tears. He is not afraid to cry. This is a man who knows pain too well. I'm not ready to look at this, Al. Not now. Not here. It's too much. I don't know if I can go on. He isn't just referring to the Camino. I don't even think before the words leave my mouth. Yes, you can. We both can, and we will. I don't know if this is true. This is big. At a time like this, words alone seem futile. But I do know that one of us has to believe it. Just as I asked Colin to do for me, I want him to know that I also believe in him. And as we sit talking through the afternoon, I hope that for now, a caring ear and what little I have to offer will be enough. Today, I learn a valuable lesson about the Camino. Irrespective of your physical condition or your reasons for being here, the way shows no mercy. Just as you have asked, it will rise up and meet you exactly where you are, assess your strengths and weaknesses, then set the task accordingly. It has been obvious from the beginning that my greatest challenge out here is physical. It becomes clear today what Colin's will be.